what were you doing when you were 20-something? So in your 20s, I'm not going to say how old, but in your 20s. What were you doing in your...
You've got to be more specific about the start of my 20s.
Let's say 25.
25, I was having my first child. And by the way, he's 25 today, so you can work out how
Am I good at this stuff right? Fantastic. And let's go a little bit backwards. So let's say when you were 21.
Yeah, so 21, I was finishing up at UCT. I studied BCom accounting. I double majored accounting and information systems at UCT. I should have known at university that I was going to be a pretty poor accountant, but I pursued it anyway. And yeah, so I was finishing up on my accounting degree and had a backup in information systems.
All right, so quick question. How many of us are familiar with EasyEquities? So if you know EasyEquities, thank you, hands down. So Charles, it's looking good.
Yeah, not bad.
And of those who are familiar with EasyEquities, how many of us use EasyEquities? It's looking good.
The rest of you can leave the room.
Yeah.
Private conversation.
Yeah, and also please do pay the one bill on your way out. This event has been sponsored by EasyEquities and Pepperwood. I want to start around 2007, 2008, but maybe let's speak briefly about your time after UCT, after qualification, just to walk us into what followed after that.
Yeah. So two of the most influential events in my life, outside of having children and getting married, I'm talking business now, and certainly those are the most things I'm most proud about. But the first thing was travel. So I left UCT. I was privileged in that I had a car that was worth at the time about 10,000 Rand, and I sold it and I just went on this journey to go and surf around the world until the money ran out. Money ran out pretty quickly.
How long did you take for money to run out?
Yeah, it took about 3 months, which I got as far as Australia, having started in Indonesia. I spent 6 months in Indonesia, 3 months in Indonesia, and then I was in Australia. And then what I did is I just worked. I did odd jobs around the world. I mean, in Australia, I cleaned backpackers, and you must understand what cleaning a backpackers is like. It's students traveling. I cleaned up after them for about 3 months, and then I traveled around Australia, and then I head to the UK. And in the UK, I carried cement bags and did drug trials. That's why I said it was the most influential event in my life, was traveling. And I saved up to then travel Europe, traveled around Spain and Portugal, surfing those areas, and actually saved enough to end up in Hawaii, which was the dream, to get to Hawaii as a surfer. And my job there was cutting grass. So I mowed the lawns for wealthy Americans, and spent 3 or 4 months doing that over their winter season, and then ended up in where I thought I had a job in Tahoe, Arizona. I was going to work as an internal accountant for a company, a South African company that refined gold dumps, took gold out of gold dumps. Called Gold Lefco back then. I think it was inherited by Gold Fields. And literally the day we arrived, there was a massive flood and no dumps, and so no work. And so that ended my kind of 3-year journey overseas. That influenced me because it was 1991 when I left school, 94 when I finished. And we all know 94 is a pinnacle date in this country. So I use this one.
Yes,
and if you like, if I come to South Africa, traveling the world opened my eyes to a whole lot of things that I otherwise wouldn't have been wise to. And most importantly, it kind of did 2 things for me. It made me much more resilient in accepting difference. And the other thing it did is it also made me much more comfortable handling change, because traveling is an uncertain kind of thing. And those 2 things really stood me in stead for the rest of my career. And then when I got home, the next most influential thing happened is I went to do my accounting job. I was internal audit, first job at Health and Racket Club. So Health and Racket Club is Planet Fitness, Virgin Active today. One of the biggest corporate frauds ever in this country. I was internal audit. My first job, I uncovered 5 frauds in like 6 months, and I wasn't good at my job. So they were equally poor, having kind of hide their fraud.
I think we have people who really know that if you're still working there and if they were to be audited, this room would be a mess.
And really what they taught me is that it wasn't the job I wanted to do. It was a bad start, internal audit and fraud.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 25-ish, yeah. I just had my first kid. In fact, I just had my first kid. I was 25 with my first job. And so what I did next, which is the important part, is that I looked around at my friends group from university, and there was one guy having more fun than everyone else. And his name was Joel Kirsten, and he was selling websites in an environment where I hadn't even heard of the internet. I had never been on the internet. And this guy was building and selling websites. And his dream and passion was to build the Amazons of South Africa. And Amazon wasn't a thing back then. And he was having so much fun doing it that I gave up my job and went and helped build and sell websites to corporate South Africans and entrepreneurs like you who all had dreams of building platforms. And that was super, super influential because I got to work inside corporates on their digital transformation. It wasn't called digital transformation back then, in '96. And then I got to work with entrepreneurs around very cool ideas that were mostly too new for an economy or a world that wasn't ready for them, but some of them were ready. And so I really got the best of both worlds. I got to see deeply inside what digital could do inside a big corporate, and I worked at places like Anglo-American, SOB, and built stuff for them. And then I got to work much more interestingly with entrepreneurs. And I built South Africa's first e-commerce stores, almost in every category. Some of them I can name, and some of them I can't. But the first South African website that ever sold a product in South Africa. Anyone know what it was? It sold seeds, South African seeds. It was called silver seeds. There were a bunch of hippie gardeners who sold got seeds for your garden, legal seeds for your garden.
This right is life experience.
And we built the first e-commerce site.
Selling illegal stuff.
Selling illegal stuff. And then we built the first bookstore, we built the first wine shop, we built the first, and we built all of them in category. And that was amazing. That was, and I ended up on a journey which shaped the rest of my career forever. Is that I met a crowd of guys who some of them still work with me today, who started GT247.com, which is part of the Purple Group. It's our online trading platform. And they were 5 young finance professionals from different walks of life. So some from finance, and some from trading, and some from sales. But they come together for a single purpose, and they wanted to build South Africa's first online trading platform. And they were a mix of everything. So there was a Dutch woman, an Irishman, a South African, an Englishman, and a Yugoslav. Seriously. And they came to me when they had raised $2 million, which is a lot of money back then, still a lot of money today, to build this platform, and they came to me to build it for them. And I naively thought we could build it. And I got so entrenched in that business that I fell in love with what they were trying to do. Because I fundamentally thought back then that if we built it, they would come, and that we could change the financial fabric of South Africa in 1996. And that set me on the journey that I'm still delivering on today. And GT247 is still part of our DNA, and some of my code still exists, mostly for clients that exit. They get the Charles Savage code experience.
And was this your first company?
Yeah, I wasn't a founder, so I was a paid consultant, and outsourced relationship. And then, we started building I met them in '96, we started building in '98. We delivered the product September 11, 2001. We launched on September 11, can you believe it? A little bit away, a day to launch this trading platform. But just prior to that, the dot-com bubble had burst. And all the naysayers were like, I told you this internet thing is rubbish, never going to work. And And they were right for 99% of the businesses, but they were wrong for 1%, and I believe GT was one of those 1%ers. And so I was going to go overseas. I had a great job offer from Macquarie in Australia, but the only reason to leave was I wanted to earn foreign income. I didn't want to leave my country. And GT offered me the ability to earn a foreign income because their money was raised offshore, but live in South Africa. It was like the best thing ever. And so I stayed, and I was CTO. It was my first, second, third job. So accountant, salesman, CTO. And I stayed as CTO. I was CTO of GT247 for 7 years, from 2001 to 2008.
So walk me briefly around a few years leading to 2007 and 2008.
Yeah.
All right. And I think at the time you're 25 years old. And you had become CEO when, I think, on the 21st of November.
Yeah.
Just walk us through that, because I know at the time you had like a few offices and...
Yeah, so GT, as I said, GT raised $2 million, which is a lot of money. We built from 2001 to 2007, we built a business that had customers in 44 countries. We were operating and had offices in Canada, in Toronto, Dublin, London, Johannesburg, Bangkok, Moscow. And we were setting up offices in Dubai and Australia. And in that process of all that success, every single thing we did turned into gold. Every single thing. Every product we launched, every platform, every jurisdiction we went to, we made money. We were profitable in a very short period of time, and we got an Icarus complex. We thought we were literally gods. And in that process, Purple Group, which I'm now CEO of, had a whole lot of capital, and I was introduced to Mark Barnes, who I've worked with for a long time, and they decided to buy us in a very short period of time. And through that transaction process, I went from running the South African running the group technology and running the South African business, to being CEO of GT247, the whole group. And I was made CEO on the 27th of November, 2007. On the 14th of February, so Valentine's Day, 2008, I shut down all of our operating businesses except South Africa. And to give you some of the economic impact of my first tenure as CEO, when I took over as CEO of GT247, Purple's share price was $2.10. By the 14th of February, it was 9 cents. And I can tell you now that everything I learned in that period, that window from 27th of November to 14th of February, and the 6 months beyond that. I learned nothing from 2001 to 2007.
You speak quite often about the importance of failure, right? There's only so much you can learn from success, and I think that's what you're alluding to now. Can you just touch a little bit more on that? Well, we don't go out to fail, but the things that you learn from going through that period.
Yeah, so I think it's something the Americans do best, and I think South Africans do very poorly. And if you just look at our political background, you can kind of understand why. And then you couple in our schooling system and everything that supports education. I mean, when did we ever celebrate our failures? I don't remember getting gifts from my parents for failing a subject. I don't remember celebrating anything around our failures. And so they're things that we put in the cupboard, we don't talk about, and we are not introspective about. And as a country, we've got some spectacular failures that we put in the cupboard for a long time. But I think in understanding, unpacking failure, you can deliver success much quicker. And so I really believe that in understanding your failures, your path to success is much more, it's got a much higher probability. And that for me has always come from just being very introspective around failure and creating a platform that embraces it. And I think, if you look at South Africa just from a venture capital, you guys are in startup. So how many of you on your first venture? Okay, how many of you on your second? So about 10% of your first venture. Second venture. Okay, how many of you are in your third venture? All right, and how many are beyond that? Okay, cool. So well done. But you're only halfway there, guys. You've got another 5 failures at least to go to the top of the list. Right, so, typically 1 in 10. If you're a good venture capitalist, you're picking better than 1 out of 10. So the guys are going to give you money. They're looking to score 2 or 3 out of 10 successes. And they're completely happy with failing 70% of the time. Let me tell you what the South African venture capital private equity market looks like. They want 100% strike rate. And if you have failed, you are less valuable to them than someone who hasn't. And in my eyes, the most valuable people in this room are those that have failed the most. And in the eyes of private equity, venture capital, US, the first question they'll ask you is, tell me about your failures. And what they're trying to understand is, where are you on this curve towards success? Because if you understand them very well, the probability is moving in your favor that your success is coming faster. And so you find, and Adam Newman's a great one, topical one now, I mean, who the hell would hire him to take over WeWork? Again, only the Americans. Right? Spectacular failure. So we buy that. And we're going to give him a second chance. Why? Because he's got a much better chance of getting it right this time.
I saw he recently raised actually for his new company.
Yeah. No, and he raised tons for his co-working home stuff. And he'll always have money supporting his ventures. And that's the American philosophy, and I think it's not in the South African DNA. So failure for me is something we should celebrate, introspectively understand, adapt, modify, and change. And the people that win are those that do that. The people that lose are people that just use failure as an excuse and keep failing and don't learn anything from it. So failing isn't going to lead you success unless you actually embrace it. And the other thing is, and EasyEquities, some of your EasyEquities clients, it's in our DNA to fail, publicly, spectacularly, right in front of you. We do it. We used to do it much more often. We get better at succeeding, but we do it all the time. We build the business to fail because it gives us agility and speed, and we have a risk tolerance that is accepting with our team to say, guys, we have planned to succeed, but we have safety nets in case we fail. And so if you go out and fail, no one gets fired. Let's deal with it. Let's be open, transparent, make sure no harm is done, but learn from it so that we've got a higher propensity to be successful next time round. And so, failure, and every startup CEO, every CEO who's successful today will talk about how failure shapes their mindset, but I don't think it's talked about enough, and I don't think it's bred in our culture, and it's not bred in our education system, and I see it with my kids. I've got 3. School beats them badly for failure. Like really, and they just go, okay, so she's bad at maths. Let's understand why. It's not a death sentence. Is there a way to deal with it in an alternative way? Or she's not good at water polo, or whatever. So anyway, failure's deep part of my DNA, and it is a critical. I failed for so long, and in my career, I'm 50, so my career is 25 years. In 25 years, I've been successful. I would say successful for 2.
That was going to be my next question. What have been some of your most crucial moments, or some of your spectacular failures, just in addition to what you've already touched on?
Yeah, I guess I touched on them. That 2008 moment of shutting down a business that was supporting hundreds of thousands of customers, supporting an ecosystem of staff, of about 400 or 500 staff. That's hard to do, and it's hard to do when you're, 28 or 29 or some ridiculous age. So even it's harder there. But that professional life, that's my most spectacular failure. That's it.
And how do you deal with suppose the failure of those around you when they have any sort of shortcomings? What is the most practical way to actually deal with it?
Yeah, look, I think there are 2 types of people, and those that can accept failure have got a high degree of resilience, agility. They've just got thicker skin, and not everyone is built that way. And so for me, it's working out if your team has those qualities, and if they do, to breed them in the organization, and if they don't, support them and don't expect them to be able to handle it. So support them in every possible way, psychologically, with people, with professional services, but also with people who are good at handling it around them. So identify who the players are who can handle it and who can't, and then make sure, just because the business can handle failure doesn't mean that everyone can. So create a support system, if you like, safety nets, ABS braking systems to handle failure, and it's different for different characters. And psychometric testing, we do it extensively, not to decide whether you're someone we're going to hire, but to know what we're hiring in terms of your risk profile.
When you experienced the failure around 2008 and you're closing offices, you're downsizing, did you ever think throwing in the towel just to close it all up?
Yeah, that would have been the easy thing to do. I questioned that probably every day until 2013. And so, why stay when it's that hard on you? And the simple reason is that I made a promise to the purple shareholders who bought GT247 that I would create value for them, and I destroyed value, incredible value. And so I had an obligation. They are incredible people. Like, I'll name one who is not alive today, so you won't mind. Rodney Lubner. Rodney Lubner is the most incredible human I've ever had the privilege of working for and called shareholder. And he, at our most spectacular point in failure, he said to me, Charles, you're going to make this work. This is going to work. We believe in you. And I said to him, but how do you think we're going to make it? He said, I've got no idea. I know you've got no idea. We're going to make this thing work. It was unbelievable. So, I stayed because people believed in me, and I owed them a return. I needed to create value for them. That's why I stayed.
We don't have that around us. People who would say, all right, cool, so you've some of the things that you've tried to do are not working, but we'll keep on supporting you. Same thing with our VC culture in the country, private equity, still the same thing, right? We often focus on wins than where your shortcomings have been, but you have a different culture to that. And as a founder, suppose one person, two people, team, how do you sort of apply these lessons on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully to be able to achieve your longevity as well?
Look, you've got to be honest with yourself in reviewing your failure. That is something you can correct. So let me give you an example where we failed spectacularly, but there was nothing we could do about it. So GT247, remember 98, the vision was build a platform and South Africa would come. Fast forward to 2002 and 2003, and not everybody was arriving. And when we reflected on why, and that's what took us to global markets, but in the South African context, no one had bank accounts, no one had fast access or cheap access to the internet. We were dialing up at 28.8K modems, and there were no devices to support the people that we were trying to attract. So the failure was a result of not understanding the ecosystem. The ecosystem was not ready for online trading platforms. It was immature. And so the response in South Africa, we could have beat our head against, the drum as much as we wanted. We would never have changed that. Our response to it, fortunately, was, let's go to places where those things aren't a problem. And so we went to places like the UK and the US, and I named those places. So you need to be very honest in your review of why you're failing, and you need to dissect it like a surgeon would. And sometimes it's hard to deal with the truth. That you might have just been, like in that case, GT247 for South Africa was a good concept too soon. And then sometimes the answer isn't what you want to hear, and you just got to shut it down. And we've done that a lot in Easy. We've shut products down. The most notorious one was the launch of our script borrowing product offering. Launched on a Monday, closed on a Wednesday, never to be seen again. 6 million rand project gone in 3 years. So you got to be honest.
Founders hold on to bad ideas for like a very long time. Right? Something that's just not working. But all of us have this concept, notion, but this idea that I have is just going to work. And so, contrary to popular belief, even if you're told that it's not going to work so well, you stick to it. I suppose there's perhaps a notion of belief to that. What are some of the principles that you guys are using to determine whether this is a good idea or not?
Yeah.
And your agility as well, your ability to move fast and closing things down. How do you work around just determining that this idea is not going to be viable?
That's a great question. I mean, and I'm going to use the process I went through to discover EasyEquities, which gave me the confidence it was the right idea. So my team, when they joke, they tell me how bad my ideas are. So and the truth is, I get kind of 1 out of 10 right. And so I need a sounding board for my ideas, and I think I'm quite good at it. But the sounding board for the ideas is to share the idea with people that aren't like you, that don't come from your background, don't come with your prejudice or preferences or anything. And if their eyes light up, then you go, hey, well, and then try someone else. And if their eyes light up, then try someone else, until the momentum of people's eyes lighting up is so powerful, it gets you to start the business. And let me tell you what I did with EasyEquities. So it's 2013. I've gone from CEO of EasyEquities to CEO of Purple Group. Share price has recovered from 9 cents to about 30 cents. Remember 2 rand. And we tried a lot. We bought a few businesses, we sold them, some of them successfully, whatever. Anyway, 2013, I'm at a board meeting. It's year-end, November, and at the end of the board meeting it closes, and I resigned. I said to the board, I'm done. And the board, which Ronnie Lumber chaired, they closed it. They said, we accept your resignation. And so I felt like they were waiting for me to resign. So when they closed the meeting and they supposedly accepted the resignation, and then Ronnie pulled me aside and he said, Charles, so you want to tell me why you're resigning? So I said, yeah. I said, I don't get out of bed to go to work anymore. It feels like Sunday every day. Like it feels like boarding school for me. And I said, I've lost purpose in what I do. It's just a job and it pays me a salary, and I've become comfortable with the job and the salary, but there's nothing that I want to do here anymore. And he goes, I get that. So he said, I accept your resignation. And then he said, but here's one thing. You're going away on your holiday. I go to Mozambique every year, my favorite place in the whole world. And I go for a month, which sounds gratuitous, but for those who think it is, it's only 8.3% of your entire year, which I actually think we all deserve more. But I go there every year, and I go with friends and family, and I meet people that are not like me, and I spend a lot of time on the beach drinking a few beers, so it's a comfortable place for me. And Ronnie knows that, and he knows it's my kind of space where I recharge. And he said, Charles, you're going to Mozambique, and you're going to recharge. And he said, why don't you think about what you're going to do next? And he said, if you come up with something that you want to do, that gets you out of bed early, use my own words, that gives you purpose, do you mind just paying me the respect to share that idea with me first? And maybe we'll invest in you. That's how incredible he was after I felt so spectacular. And so I went with this purpose to relax on the beach in Mozambique, but to also understand what the hell I was going to do. And I was sitting on the beach, and I was talking to they were surrounded by lots of people. And it struck me that none of the people that were around me had ever invested through me. And I've been doing this now for 13 years. And so I turned to them, I said, look guys, that's a simple question. Am I a shit share salesman? Like, am I the worst salesman in the whole world? And I had different age groups. So my kids were 10 years younger, my son would be 15, and my daughter 13, and younger 4, and then my wife, and etc. So different age groups, old, young, and everything in between. And in the different ways, they all articulated that they had tried, that they found it intimidating, that it was too sophisticated, that they tried to join the conversation but felt stupid and excluded. And I sat there and I just listened to them, and I said, okay, but if I make it easy, will you buy shares? And the answer was yes. I said, cool. Then that's what we're going to do. We're going to make